Hi class, so this is the rationale for your quiz 1, that is your student activity sheet modules 1 to 4. So let's start. First question, what refers to the collection of all cases in which the researcher is interested? The choices are letter A, sample, B, population, C, parameters, D, data. The correct answer is population. So, what is population class and what is a sample? Population, this refers to the collection of all cases in which the researcher is interested, meaning it is the subject of interest for investigation. So in this picture here, this is the population, this is the whole population, and this area here taken is the sample. Okay? Again, population is the totality of objects, persons, materials, happenings, or events under investigation. Okay? Next, ano yung sample? Sample class is only a representative of the population from which it is taken. So in the picture here, again, this is the whole population, and this representative sample taken from this whole population is your sample. Okay? Sample is the subset or the subpopulation or the portion only of the objects, persons, materials, happenings, or events under investigation. So this is the difference between population and sample. Example class, as of 2020, there are 109 million population or people living in the Philippines. So example, the population of the Philippines is the subject of interest, so that is your population. And then as of 2020, 3,325,000 people are living in Cebu. So if that is only in Cebu, that is the sample taken from the whole population of the Philippines. Okay? Another example, total of COVID-19 cases in the Philippines. So that is the population. And then you have total of COVID-19 cases in Cebu. So one of the places in the Philippines, we only have Cebu. For example, is taken, yung sample kinuha from Cebu out of the whole population of the Philippines. So that is an example or the difference between population and sample. So let's differentiate parameter and statistic. Parameter is a number that describes a population characteristic. It is denoted by small Greek letters. Example, population mean, population variance, and population standard deviation. As you notice, um, the symbols are denoted by small Greek letters. Do not worry, you'll be encountering these topics, mean, variance, and standard deviation in these succeeding modules. Okay? So let's focus on this one lang sa. So again, parameter describes a population characteristic class. Okay? How about statistic? Statistic is a number that describes this time a sample characteristic, and it is denoted by small English letters. So example, sample mean, sample variance, and sample standard deviation. As you notice, it's denoted by small English alphabet letters. So again class, parameter, population characteristic, statistic, sample characteristic. Why do researchers prefer to take samples out from the whole population than conducting investigation using the whole population na lang? And also, why do we use statistics or sample measures instead of parameters? So actually class, it is very time consuming, it is also very costly and difficult for the researchers to collect data from every member or every element of the whole population. So instead, data is collected from samples taken from that population. So for example, with inferential statistics, we can already samples already can make educated guesses about the population measures. So I have here an example, a representative this is only a representation of parameter and statistic. So, example, the population here, the average is 3.72. Let us say we're going to know to study the number of siblings of the people living in Cebu. Okay? The number, how many siblings do they have of the people living in Cebu? And um, the population in Cebu, their number of siblings average is 3.72. Of course, you rounded it off to 4. Wala namang person that can be measured like 3.72. So, average is 4 siblings yung meron sa population of people living in Cebu. If we take only samples, like sample, we only take sample from Mandawi City, one of the cities of Cebu, the average number of siblings of the people living in Mandawi City is equal to 3.75, or that is actually rounded off to 4 as well. So as you can notice, class, there is a difference in their values, and that is totally normal. There will always be difference because you cannot exactly tell which sample you will take from the whole population. Okay? You can take, or you can, the researcher can take sample or pick samples, different samples from the whole population. But then, the sample measure can already give you um, an educated guess or an estimate that represents the whole population. And this is more convenient for the researchers, and it is not time consuming, and it will also save costs. Okay? So sample is preferable, and as well as statistics. Again, statistics is the sample, refers to the sample measures or sample characteristics. Okay? So that is the reason why do we use statistics instead of analyzing the whole population. Next, number 2, which of these methods involves the researcher gathering measuring data from a primary source for publication existing in historical records? So this is the clue, class. May clue na existing in historical records. Choices are letter A, survey, B, registration, C, archival, letter D, observation. The correct answer is archival. Okay? So, let's recall the different methods of collecting data. It could be observational method, experimental method, registration method, archival, and survey method. For the observation method, observational data, class, are obtained by observing, meaning senses are used here by observing the behavior of the subjects. Okay, this is the simplest method of collecting data. Experimental data are obtained for the cause and effect studies under controlled conditions. So it's under controlled conditions. So experiments are conducted by the researchers to determine the cause and effect, okay, of the study or the investigation. Next is registration method. In here, registration data are obtained from respondents providing the necessary information in compliance with existing laws and regulation. So example, yung birth birth certificates or birth registration, car registration, voters registration, those are information that are necessary and it should be in accordance with the existing laws. So that is your registration data. Another is your archival data, or it is also called as secondary data. Okay? This data are obtained from the primary source of publication from existing archives or secondary sources of republication data made by another agencies. Okay? So this is your archival method. Next is the survey method. When you say survey method, the data here are obtained from asking respondents with questions. Survey can be personal or direct interview method, or it could be questionnaire or indirect method. When you say personal or direct interview method, there is a person-to-person contact. There is an interviewer and an interviewee. Okay? This is the most effective among all the methods because it can provide accurate and precise information directly from the respondent from the time that you conduct the interview. Directly nakukuha mo sa interviewee mo. Okay? For the questionnaire or indirect method, this is actually obtained through questionnaires, and this is considered to be the easiest method of data collection. The easiest method. Okay? So the difference here, for your direct method or the personal method, it has higher response rates because you can obtain responses or data at one time directly from the respondents or the one you interviewed. For the questionnaire or indirect method, it has lower response rate. Kasi nga, may iba, if questionnaire, di na nila sinasagutan. And also in the personal or interview method, there is an honest, sincere, and direct answers that you will be able to obtain from the respondents that you interviewed. Sa questionnaire kasi, pwede hindi naintindihan ni interviewee yung questions or they choose not to answer na lang. Okay? So, that's the difference. Kaya mas higher yung response rate ni personal or interview method kaysa kay questionnaire survey method. Okay? But the advantage lang ni questionnaire method, you can do this to a large number of respondents simultaneously. For personal or direct interview method, it can be only administered to respondents one at a time. Kasi nga, there is a connection or an interview that will happen. There is a contact between the interviewer and the interviewee. So, hindi mo naman pwede masabay lahat. It's always one at a time. So, that's the difference between personal and questionnaire method. Again, there are two survey can be personal or interview methods, or it can be questionnaire or indirect method. So these are the methods of collecting data. Number 3, what refers to the portion or a subset of the population from which the information is gathered? Letter A, parameter; B, data; C, population; D, sample. The correct answer is sample. Again, I already discussed this in my previous slide. Subset of the population, meaning portion of the population, that is your sample. Sorry, class. That is your sample. Number 4, what refers to the population measures? The correct answer is parameter. Okay? Statistic, sample measures; parameter, population measures. This one, remember this, class. So, this is just a mnemonic. P stands for parameter, and that refers or describes population characteristics or refers to population measures. S stands for statistic, that refers to sample measures or sample characteristic. So again, parameter talks about the whole population, while statistic describes only a sample of the population. Because a parameter is found out only when you know data about everyone in the population, parameter is fixed. Okay, it is fixed. On the other hand, statistic that describes the same population can vary. So meaning statistical values are variable because you can take different samples. Sabi ko nga kanina, you can take different samples from the same population. For example, 100 students enrolling in the EN051 Biostatistics and Epidemiology, and we're going to pick or take only 20 students. Okay? And we will never know which one of the 20 students ang pwede kunin. Okay, so you can in statistics, they can actually take different samples from the same population and thus get different results. So nagva-vary yung values or results ni statistic than the parameter. Still, when a population is so large that nobody has the time or resources to ask everyone, a statistic will provide enough information already to draw conclusions or educated guesses out from the whole population measures. Okay? So, still, mas preferable yung statistic. Why most researchers choose statistic over parameter. Number 5. Which of the following is an example of nominal data? Letter A, gender. B, year level. Letter C, class standing. D, both A and B. The correct answer is both A and B. That's gender and year level. So I have received questions regarding this because year level daw is also an ordinal data. So we will discuss what is data first. Let us first define data. Data are facts, statistic, or information obtained that can be constant or variable. So that is your data. Variable class can be qualitative, constant, meaning it cannot be changed, while variable, it varies or it can be changed. Okay, that's only the very basic definition that you have to remember what is constant and what is variable. Variable can be qualitative and quantitative. When you say qualitative, this cannot be measured. These are only their descriptive values, while quantitative can be measured or refers to their numerical responses or values. Quantitative, in addition or furthermore, can be discrete quantitative variable or continuous quantitative variable. When you say discrete class, this is actually finite or countable infinite values such as the cell phone number. Okay? So there is this process of counting. That's discrete. When you say continuous quantitative variable, there are decimal values or points. Okay? For example, yung discrete quantitative, example, number of students, number of patients. These are discrete quantitative variables. Of course, you cannot say 1.5 students, di ba? Unless kung manananggal, di ba, class? So it's always whole number. 3 students, 5 students, 8 patients. So again, we cannot say 1.5 students. Okay? So example of continuous quantitative variable are your height, weight, temperature, and BMI, and so on and so forth. Na pwede siya, blood pressure, na pwede siya maging point or may values na decimal points. Okay? Like height, pwede naman 173.2 centimeters. Weight, it could be 5.70 grams or I mean kilograms or grams. Okay? Temperature could be 37.8 degrees Celsius. So these are the examples of your continuous quantitative variables. Next, your variables class can be classified also according to its level of measurements. So first we have nominal data. When you say nominal data, it categorizes subjects into groups or categories that are mutually exclusive. Nominal data is said to be the crudest form, it's the simplest, and it's the least level of measurements. Okay? Examples are gender and year level. This is in your quiz. Gender, of course, female and male. Kahit sa comfort room, females and males cannot be interchanged. Exclusively, yung females, females talaga. Males, males talaga. Year level, example, first year, they are the freshmen. Second year, sophomore. Third year, junior. And fourth year are the seniors. So for the year level, freshmen cannot be sophomores. Sophomores cannot be freshmen, as well as sophomores cannot be juniors, and so on and so forth, because they are categorized differently. Okay? So year level is a nominal data. Next, ano yung ordinal data? It ranked or ordered data, which means that one data is higher or lower than the other. So meaning, year level class can be ordinal data as well. Because an ordinal data, this is more accurate, this is higher level than the nominal data, this is already an improvement of nominal data. But remember class, for year level, freshmen, sophomore, though freshmen are lower than sophomore, juniors, and senior students, they cannot be compared because they are categorized differently. Again, they cannot be compared, though freshmen are lower when it comes to their year level, they cannot be compared because they are categorized differently. Okay? So the best answer when you say year level, it fits to nominal data. So let's go back to ordinal data. This is an improvement of nominal data. Examples are students' class standing, like 5 for excellent, 4 very good, 3 good, 2 fair, and 1 poor. We've encountered this when we were in grade school and high school in our student cards. Also, pain assessment is an example of ordinal data. If pain assessment like 0, you're being asked by your doctor, rate how painful it is. 0, no pain. 1, moderately painful. 2, severely painful. And 3, very painful. So again, these are the examples of your ordinal data. Interval data. Data are numeric in nature but does not have an inherent zero. Examples, body temperature and blood pressure. Of course, wala namang body temperature na zero class unless patay ka na. Wala ding blood pressure na nagzi-zero. Okay? So these are examples of your interval data. Next, ratio data. Data are numeric in nature but does have an absolute 0 point. So may 0 na starting point. Examples are age, income, and exam scores. Exam scores can be 0, okay? Wag sana. Income as well can be 0. Age starts with 0. Lahat nagsisimula naman sa 0. So, these are examples of your ratio data. Therefore, class, ratio data, we can classify, we can also order or rank them, and likewise, we can also compare their magnitudes. Okay, these are the different levels of measurements of your variables. Just an additional, raw data, data obtained are in their original form and structure. Raw nga, meaning no filter, it's from the original form and structure. Examples are surveys, taped interviews, recorded observations, and documentaries. Number 6, Dr. Gray assessed the patient's condition by asking the patient to rate the pain from 1 to 5. What variable is being described in this scenario? Letter A, interval data. Letter B, nominal data. C, ordinal data. D, both B and C. The correct answer is ordinal data. Again, pain assessment, it's an example of ordinal data. Okay? Next, number 7, what type of data are usually being placed and summarized in tabular form? The correct answer is group data. Group data, on the other hand, class, are those that are placed and summarized in tabular form. Okay. Number 8, all but one are examples of raw data, meaning an exception here is your blood pressure values. Again, surveys, taped interviews, and recorded observations are example of raw data. Okay? Number 9, what method of data collection requires the respondents to provide the necessary information? Correct answer is registration method. Again, necessary information in accordance with existing laws and regulations. Example, car registration, birth registration, voters registration. Next, I'm sorry class, wait. So let's go back. Number 10, what is the method of gathering data from every unit in the population? The correct answer is census and also complete enumeration. So generally class, data collection can be done through census or complete enumeration and survey sampling. When you say census or complete enumeration, alam natin to kasi ginagawa yung census bahay to bahay at may sticker na ipapilit sa balay. Remember mo, ana? So census or complete enumeration refers to population. Survey sampling refers to sample. It can be probability or non-probability sampling. Okay? Excuse me, class. So let's move on. Number 11, all but one are examples of probability sampling. So meaning an exception here is quota sampling. Quota sampling is an example of non-probability sampling. Stratified random sampling, simple random sampling, and cluster sampling are examples of probability sampling. So, your sampling techniques, your survey sampling can be probability sampling or non-probability sampling. When you say probability sampling, it involves random selection, meaning kahit saan, allowing you to make strong statistical inferences about the whole group. When you say non-probability sampling, it involves non-random selection based on convenience or other criteria of the researcher, allowing you to easily collect data but a higher risk of sampling bias, making it um, to have a very weak statistical inferences. Not every individual here has a chance of being included in the selection. So this is the difference between probability sampling and non-probability sampling. So these are the examples of probability sampling. You have simple random sampling, stratified random sampling, systematic, and cluster sampling. I'll drink water sa class. So simple, let's go back. Simple random sampling, every element of the population has an equal chance of being included. In here, you don't have to think, you don't have to choose, you don't have to decide. Just have to pick, no, anywhere, anything, kahit saan. So example here are lottery, raffle, or the use of random number. So ito, hindi talaga to bias kasi very random. Okay? Stratified random sampling is the same with simple sampling, but this time the population is divided into strata consisting of homogeneous units. Okay, your stratified random sampling, the whole population again is divided into subpopulation consists called strata, and that consists homogeneous units, meaning similar or of the same kind. So as you notice here, this is only a very basic example. Blue fishes are together because they are stratified. Green fishes and the pink fish. Okay. For each stratum, a simple random sampling is performed to select the samples. So in here, in each stratum, this is stratum 1, stratum 2, stratum 3, nagpe-perform pa ng simple random sampling within this within this one stratum. Okay? So did you understand, class? Again, for each stratum, di ba ito yung mga strata, there are three groups stratified. Group 1, Group 2, and Group 3 out of this whole population of homogeneous, and they are stratified to homogeneous units, meaning similar kind. In each group, they also perform simple random sampling, meaning nagpipick pa out of these small groups or three groups. Okay? Next is thematic sampling. Sampling procedure is by taking every sampling interval or unit from an ordered population. So may formula dito. K is the sampling interval, which is equal to N, capital N, that's population size, divided by small n, that's the sample size. So let's proceed. So this is the formula again. For example, there are 40 students, that's the population size, and we're going to target or to take only 13 students out of the 40 students. Okay, so 13 there is the sample size, 40 is the population size. So 40 divided by 13 using this formula is equal to 3.08, or that's rounded off to 3. Okay? Hence, okay, here let's look at this. So there are 40 students. Ito yung mga 40 students. We start with 8. Why do we start with 8? It can be done by random start. Okay? You can start anywhere, but I will choose 8. Okay? So 3 man yung sampling interval. Let's count. 1, 2, 3. From 8, so 11 yung next. 1, 2, 3, 14. 1, 2, 3, that's 17. 1, 2, 3, 20. 1, 2, 3, 23. And so on and so forth. So, if you notice, I start with 8. I stopped here until 38. I go back to 1. Count 1, 2, then 3. Okay? 1. Okay, let's go back. Is it correct? Sorry. This should be 1, supposedly. Because 1, 2, 1, 2, yes. 1, 2, 3. This should be 1. 1, 2, 3. This should be 4. Okay? So again, 3 yung sampling intervals. So if you count, let's just count it from 8, 1, 2, yung mga naka-highlight class, let's count it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Tapos si 1. Again, class, it should be 1 ha, kasi 3 man yung interval. From here, let's count. 1, 2, 3. Ito din, 1, 2, 3. So, dapat si 1 at si 4, hindi si 2 at si 5. Okay? So, again, nagsastart ako kay 8. This could be randomly decided by the researcher. So, nag-decide ako na sa 8 ako mag-start. So, again, let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. So, meaning, si student 1, student 4, student 8, student 11, and so on and so forth are the 13 students that I will get in my sample size out of the 40 students. Okay, so yung sample size ko, 13 students, at yung mga naka-highlight, yun yung mga estudyante na ipipick ko. Okay? So, did you understand, class? Again, class, this is your systematic sampling. Next, cluster sampling. Cluster sampling is a variation of stratified random sampling in which the strata this time are called clusters and are heterogeneous. Okay? Your cluster sampling are also known as area sampling. Okay? Again, your cluster sampling are also known as your area sampling because in many cases, your clusters consist of barangays, cities, municipalities, provinces, or streets. Usually, they consist of geographic units. That's why they are called as area sampling. So this is your stratified sampling. They are grouped or stratified by, they are grouped or stratified but are homogeneous, meaning of the same kind. But yung cluster sampling class, they are grouped but it can be grouped into heterogeneous units. Okay? Yung group dito tawagin nating strata for stratified sampling. For cluster sampling, groups are called clusters. Again, cluster sampling are also called as area sampling. Next, multi-stage sampling. Multi-stage is a sampling procedure wherein the population is divided into a sequence of sampling units corresponding to the different sampling stages. So this time, usually yung multi-stage sampling is used only for screening procedures or sa mga screening purposes lang class. Okay? So again, dito, population is divided into sequence of sampling units. Tapos, they already applied different sampling stages. From the word itself, multi-stage sampling. Okay? Next, so those are the examples of your probability sampling. Next, let's have non-probability sampling. Examples are quota sampling, convenience sampling, accidental sampling, and purposive sampling. So when to use non-probability sampling class? Usually, gumagamit ng non-probability sampling are those conducting qualitative research, pilot studies or exploratory research, as well as researchers that have limited time to conduct their research, or they have limited budget or budget constraints. When the researcher needs to observe whether a particular issue as well that needs in-depth analysis, he applies this method. Non-probability sampling is also applied for marketing strategies or marketing researches. Okay? So let's go back. Example are quota sampling, convenience sampling, and accidental sampling, and purposive sampling. These are self-explanatory class. Purposive, it's based on the judgment of the researcher. So si researcher na yung bahala. So this is one disadvantage kasi nga subjective siya. It depends to the knowledge and expertise of the researcher. Okay? Quota sampling. Ito, example, 500 students. Tapos, the researcher will only decide kung sino ang students na kukunin niya na sample, one of the samples na uh, he or she will analyze or study. So that is an example of quota sampling. Another is convenience sampling. Say convenience based on the convenience or the convenience of the researcher to choose the sample size based on its availability or its choices. Okay, lahat ng choices nito nasa researchers, halos lahat. Okay, so this is one disadvantage of non-probability sampling. It's prone to bias, sampling, and judgments. Okay? Kahit yung job application, purposive sampling yun, di ba? It's purposive or judgment sampling. They will always choose employees that are fit in the job. Okay? Kasi class, just remember, kasi probability sampling, random. Usually, mga random yung sampling. If you notice the examples, random yung sampling. Kahit nga yung systematic, random naman. Hindi natin kilala si student 2, student 5, student 8. Random sampling yung probability sampling. But for non-probability sampling, this does not involve random sampling. Okay? These are for, again, marketing researches or researchers that doesn't want to conduct random sampling. Number 12, in Slovin's formula, what does small n stands for? Letter A, margin of error, sorry class. Letter B, sample size. Letter C, population size. Letter D, none of the above. The correct answer is sample size. So ano ba yung Slovin's formula? This is the formula. So this is the sample size is equal to capital N, that's the population size, divided by 1. 1 na jud to ha, always 1. Plus the population size multiplied with the square of the margin of error. Okay? So when is Slovin's formula used? Most researchers use Slovin's formula kasi they have a hard time to decide of the sample size, especially if um, malaki yung population. So they have a hard time to decide how large a sample must be. So they use Slovin's formula. For example here, how many samples must be taken from a population consisting of 240 respondents with 4% margin of error. Margin of error class is the probability of committing an error. Usually it's 5%, but the problem here that I'll give, let's use 4%. So 240, that's the population size divided by 1. Again, 1 na jud na siya. Plus 240, multiply it with the square of 4% or 0.04. Okay? Di 4 ibutang ha, that's 0.04. Kasi nga, percentage divided by 100. So that's 0.04. Okay? So 240 divided by 1 plus 240 times the square of 0.04, that's 0.0016. Do not forget, always apply PEMDAS rule class ha, which one ang i-perform na operation ng una. Okay? So, square first your 0.04. Next step, multiply 240 and 0.0016. So, the answer is 0.384. So, we already have 240 divided by 1 plus 0.384. Okay? So 240 divided by 1.384, that's equal to 173.41. Again, we cannot say 173.41 respondents. Di ba? Lain sa kay kaputo lang usa ka tawo. So let's round it off to 173 respondents. The answer is 173 respondents. Let's proceed. Okay, ito sa true or false is the second portion of the quiz. Nominal data or qualitative. Okay, that's true. Okay, nominal data, example yung gender, year level, they are qualitative. They cannot be measured. Next, cluster sampling is a variation of stratified random sampling. This is true again. Remember, the groups in cluster sampling are called clusters. Sa stratified random sampling are called strata. Okay? But the difference is your cluster sampling, yung groups or clusters are heterogeneous units, while your stratified random sampling are homogeneous or of the same kind. Okay? Slovin's formula, medyo OCC stratified random sampling. Okay? So Slovin's formula shows that the greater the margin of error, the greater the sample size. False class, this should be the lesser. Okay, let's go back. This is the sample size and this is the margin of error. If you look at the formula class, always remember class, yung mga formula, it will always describe the relationship with each other. So the sample size and the margin of error are indirectly proportional, meaning opposite yung relationship nila. So meaning, greater yung margin of error, lesser yung sample size. Or, the other way around, lesser ang margin of error, greater ang sample size. So this is false. Number 15, gender, religious affiliation, and civil status are examples of quantitative variables. This is false. These are examples of qualitative variables class. Okay? Qualitative variables to because you cannot measure gender, religious affiliation, and civil status. Number 17, a college dean wants to determine the average semestral enrollment in the past 5 school years. This is an example of descriptive statistics, and this is true, okay? There are two divisions of statistics. Okay, these are the two main divisions of the statistics: descriptive and inferential statistics. When you say descriptive, it deals with the collection, organization, and analysis of data without making conclusions, predictions, or inferences. When you say inferential statistics, it deals with the collection, organization, and analysis of data by making conclusions, predictions, estimations, or inferences. So, as you can see, most of the research uses inferential statistics. Even for the COVID-19, they use inferential statistics to predict or estimate the outcome of the different strategies implemented by LGUs, DOH, and IATF. Okay? So this is the difference between descriptive statistics and inferential statistics. Again, these are the two main divisions of statistics. Let's go back. Number 18, a chief nurse wants to predict the number of dengue students for the next 2 years. This is an example of descriptive statistics. False. It should be inferential statistics. Ito class, for the next 2 years. So it makes an estimation or inference. So this should be inferential statistics. Number 19, statistics are sample measures or values related to sample, which is usually denoted by the uppercase letters of the English alphabet. This is false. This should be lowercase letters or small letters of the English alphabet. Again, statistics, sample measures, population measures are your parameters. Population measures, number 20, are numerical characteristics usually denoted by small Greek letters. And this is true. Okay? Greek letters, hindi English letters. So these are the two main divisions of statistics. Statistics can be defined in plural sense and in singular sense. So in plural sense, statistics is the collection of numerical facts, data, or information, while in singular sense, it is just not the collection, but it deals with the presentation, organization, analysis, and interpretation of data. So this one is from the observation and the collection. Yung singular sense, it's from the collection down to the interpretation of data. It already applies different statistical methods. Yung singular sense, these are two definitions of statistics. So this is my reference, and this is also one of the references of your student activity sheet or SAS modules. Of course, I'm also referring to your SAS modules. So this is my reference. That would be all for the Rationale for short quiz 1, which covers topics from SAS module 1 to 4. Thank you so much, class, for listening. You study smart, and God bless.